Okay, welcome to our breakout session. S4HANA Success starts with people, leadership in the technology transformation. Now that's quite a lengthy title, but what we're going to focus on today is people and aspects of organizational change management. We'll look at how we need to build engagement and awareness in order to help people change. But first, a brief introduction. My name is Gavin Richardson, Consulting and Operations Director at RapidX. In terms of what we do, we deliver consulting and advisory services to our customers, typically those undergoing an SAP digital transformation, using our digital transformation suite, best practice methodology and tools. This focuses on several key dimensions. Data, the foundational layer, so key to making correct business decisions. Strategy, the big picture of what we're doing and why, aligned to business objectives. Processes, defining how we will use the technology to drive the correct results. Solution, the technology and applications underpinning the transformation. And finally, people. So important to the ultimate success. How they engage, adopt and use the system will be the ultimate marker of success. And this is the topic that we'll be exploring further today. So I'd like to frame each section through statistics to help explain why these topics are key. In this case, 70% of digital transformation projects fall short of their objectives. Now that statistic is a little bit old, and in fact, depending upon your preferred analyst, it can be anywhere between 70% and a massive 95%. Now that's quite a negative view, but the good news is that we don't actually need to focus on many different factors in order to flip the odds of success from a measly 30% to a much more palatable 70%. Just need us to focus on those dimensions that we discussed earlier. Strategy, processes, technology and data are of course important, but it's unlikely that the technology itself won't work. What is critical is the people dimension. People are a key factor to making your transformation successful, and people will engage best with the projects that they care most about. To put that to the test, when we originally held this session, we made it interactive. We kept our audience engaged by conducting a number of polls. Now we can't do that today, but we can talk through the questions that were asked and the results of those particular polls. So we asked our audience, what is the key challenge you see in modernizing your current ERP system? Was it a lack of resources, having the required skills to undertake the project? Was it complexity? ERP systems themselves are integrated and inherently complex. Therefore, these projects tend to represent a significant risk. Was it due to alignment with business strategy, doing the right things that the business care about? Is it due to disruption? So ERP systems are critical and we cannot afford to be without them for any prolonged period of time, or have periods where people cannot do their jobs because they do not understand the new ways of working. Was it due to a return on investment, the costs? These projects can cost tens of millions of pounds, therefore they can be hard to justify, especially if it's perceived as primarily a technical project. The overwhelming response in this case was a lack of resources, and this is very true. There is now a ticking clock. 2027, the end of mainstream maintenance is just around the corner, and 2030 really is not too far away. There is a real momentum in the marketplace of customers launching their SAP upgrade or transformation projects at the same time, and this is going to lead to a resource shortage in the marketplace. And it's not like businesses have skilled SAP resources just sitting there on the bench available to undertake these projects. So this is really going to be an issue for the industry as a whole. It also indicates that it's important to look after the colleagues and experts that we do have. We need to ensure that they are engaged and bought into what we are actually trying to achieve, what we're trying to do. So where does this start? It starts with an explanation as to why we need to change. So how can we start to build this awareness of change, build a desire to engage with these programs of work? Well, the answer to this starts with the creation of the business case. So our next statistic, 69% of ERP decision makers agreed that their current ERP strategies were not strongly aligned to their organization's business strategies. Now, when we read between the lines, this potentially means that we're embarking upon major transformational projects without considering how this will benefit the business. We're not necessarily delivering the outcomes and value that is meaningful to them. And if that's the case, it's going to be really hard to gain their support. Now, when we speak to our customers about why they are embarking upon these changes, initially their response can be as simple as, well, we need to stay in support. Of course, there is a cost to doing nothing. It could be a critical system and we cannot afford to be in a position where we don't get our support. Or we potentially close ourselves off from getting access to the latest innovations if we don't upgrade. But these are just technical justifications, and they suggest that we're approaching the project as a technical upgrade. Now, that may solve end-of-life issues and provide you with a faster system, but it's unlikely to deliver new business outcomes. If you need a return on investment, then a technical migration approach only is not going to help get executives or your end users on side. What we need to do is determine what the business wants to achieve, what are its goals and objectives. We can then determine how technology can influence or deliver this required value. These become our drivers for change, our value drivers. These need to be built into the business case to help get executives and business users on side from the outset. So here we can see some examples of different value drivers. The top two here, they're very technically aligned. The cost of doing nothing, we've discussed this earlier. The need to upgrade, ensure that we actually stay in support. The second one, application consolidation. This is better. It would certainly indicate a return on investment for a reduction in the application footprint, bringing more functionality under the scope of SAP. But it's still not really expressed in ways that are going to resonate with the business. We need to consider alternatives that speak specifically to our desired audience, address the things that they care about. And then we need to understand how IT can actually impact that value. This will then help us to develop specific value drivers, such as financially related. We might want to reduce costs, lower the days sales outstanding by 10%, reduce the time taken to get our customers to pay their bills. Now, these figures are just examples. They're taken from SAP case studies and success stories. We need to determine the values that are going to be specific to your organization. Another financial aligned example could be around efficiency savings, improving the time taken for consolidation and financial close by 60% through adopting more automation that is made available to us through new technology. Again, just an example. Now, ideally, these value drivers should be quantifiable so that we can monitor and assess our return on investment post go live. However, they could also be qualitative. For example, aligned to risk mitigation. Through adopting S/4HANA processes, we might be better able to meet our ESG obligations. Now, we're not saying this is easy. However, there are tools out there that can aid with this. For example, SAP Signavio provides insight of how your company operates and where improvements and automation are possible. And of course, there are consultancies such as our own at Rapid that specialize in business case creation. So we've now built a business case, we've justified the transformation program, but ultimately the success or failure of a project will be heavily influenced by the business readiness to engage with the program and adopt the new technology. Having specific value drivers will help drive the engagement, but we may still find that people reject the change. In this section, we will explore why this is the case. So we ask the audience, why do people typically reject change? Is it due to a lack of a shared vision, i.e. that we're delivering a transformation that they do not value? They feel the pain without the benefit. Is it due to a lack of engagement? They feel that change is being dictated to them, done to them. People need to build an awareness and desire to change. Is it due to a fear of the unknown? Humans instinctively fear what they don't understand. We'll discuss that shortly. Is it due to a lack of trust? We need to trust those that are delivering the change. We need to believe that they are doing it for the right reasons, not for their own benefit. But the most popular answer in this case was the last one, comfort with the status quo. Natural reaction is to resist change that doesn't feel normal. There is a certain comfort in familiarity. So why do people reject change, and why is it important to address this? Well, 70% of digital transformations fail to reach their goals, often due to poor adoption and change management, according to this statistic. So why do we see this poor adoption? Well, there are a couple of different factors. I'm sure most of us are familiar with these. So if we consider the phrase, old habits die hard. The slide shows an image of a dog with a stick. If we throw the stick, the dog will instinctively chase it, and hopefully with a bit of training, bring it back. It becomes second nature. Although people are much more complex than dogs, we do get used to behaving and working in a certain way. This is especially relevant for these large digital transformation programs. These ECC systems that we're looking to replace have perhaps been in place for many years, perhaps even decades, and we're now asking people to change, to do something different. This can be hard to accept, as our natural instinct is to resist change. Another human reaction, fear of the unknown. People will naturally fear what it is that they don't understand, even if it is perhaps justified. This is especially relevant when projects talk about delivering efficiency savings. People may become fearful that their job is at risk and therefore choose to ignore or resist that particular change. The answer to this is to consistently communicate and educate. We need to build an awareness, not just that the change is coming, but how it's going to benefit the individuals concerned and make their lives better. If we focus purely on the technical aspects of transformation without considering the human element, this can lead to anxiety, fear, and resistance among our business community. What we need to do is to create a compelling case to change. The value drivers will certainly help with this. We can optionally create a rewards and recognitions program. Now, these can be geared towards reinforcing new processes and policies to ensure the transformation succeeds. Now, we're not saying that everyone needs to be given a pay rise to adopt new ways of working, but even things like micro rewards or employee recognition will help inspire people to do the right things. We do this at Rapid. Every employee is given a small monthly budget of £20 each month that they can allocate out to other team members in the form of credits in recognition of teamwork or other achievements. The employees that are in receipt of these can then swap these credits for vouchers or other micro rewards. This is a great way to encourage people to behave differently and to challenge themselves. Most importantly of all on this slide, around involving the business. People shouldn't see change as being forced upon them or done to them. It's imperative that transformational programs are driven by the business and not seen as something that the IT department is mandating. This is especially relevant in global organizations with a centralized IT function. The most successful projects I've worked on have had members from the business embedded within the project team to help design the system from the outset. They get involved in fit to standard workshops, define requirements, early stage testing. They're not just involved during user acceptance tests. This is all going to be considered under the topic of organizational change management. So how do we build a change-ready culture? For this, we need to look at OCM, Organizational Change Management. But first, another poll. So we asked our audience, what is the biggest barrier to organizational change that they see? Is it a lack of leadership support? So we need support from the CEO down, including middle management, as these are the people that will help the individuals on the ground actually change. Is it due to inadequate change management resources? Ideally, we need a dedicated team in order to roll out the change successfully across our organization. Was it due to insufficient training? So we need to build awareness of the change before receiving detailed system training, technical training. We need to develop a learning journey, not just provide access to transactions and reports. Is it due to poor communication? So we need a strong communication plan describing why and how of change. Ideally, this should be targeted to specific stakeholder groups. Is it due to employee resistance? The human element, as we discussed before, fear of the unknown, happy with the status quo, natural reactions. As you can see, the most popular response was a lack of leadership support. This is a concern because without that support and our managers demonstrating the required behaviours, we cannot expect the business, the people on the ground, to actually embrace change. So another statistic here, and perhaps a biased opinion, as this is by the Prosky Group, who are a change management firm, but their research suggests that by adopting a defined change management approach, we can be up to 7 times more likely to succeed. Now, we're not talking about technical change management here. This is all about people. Anytime an organization experiences a major shift, some employees will be eager to embrace the change, while others will be hesitant to let go of the familiar. We need to help our people engage, adopt, and use the changes brought about by transformation. Without this, we will not be successful. We need to get everybody on the same page. And for this, we need organizational change management, or OCM. This will help prepare employees and other stakeholders for new processes and for new technology. So every project I've ever worked on has had a project manager responsible for managing the technical side of change, the design, the development, the delivery. They create and manage a plan, sequence for deliverables, activities and resources over the project lifetime. But these actions only address the technical side of change delivery. We also need to support and guide people through the impact of change to help ensure success. Consider it this way: if a project delivers the technical change on time and under budget, but the users are not prepared and equipped to adopt and use the new systems and processes, then we will not reap the benefits of the change. As we discussed earlier, for digital transformation programs, this is incredibly important, because to really deliver value, we have to be talking about business transformation. This cannot just be a technical upgrade. Users of the system will be likely to operating a new or changed process as part of their daily routine. In order to realize the value, they also need to change the way that they do things. So how can we help people adopt change? Well, this is where organizational change management, or OCM for short, plays a major part. Now, there are several different approaches to OCM. SAP Activate has elements of OCM sprinkled throughout, engaging users in fit to standard workshops, participating in testing and so on. However, the approach we will discuss today is called the Prosky methodology. It's technology agnostic, but it is preferred at Rapid because it puts the individual front and center. You can see them represented here in the star. They're not called ADKAR. This represents the changes of state, the stages of change that an individual must achieve in order to realize success. And we'll have some more on that later. The Prosky methodology has 3 phases. The first phase, preparing the approach. This phase is about setting the stage for change. It involves assessing business readiness, defining a clear change management strategy, communication and training plans and so on. And importantly, assembling a dedicated change management team. The second stage, managing change. Here the plan is put into action. We actively manage the change process, including communicating effectively with stakeholders, delivering targeted training, and engaging with employees to manage resistance and foster support. The third phase, sustaining outcomes. This final phase ensures that the changes stick over the long term. The goal is to solidify the change, ensuring people don't revert to old ways of working. But at the center of this approach is the ADKAR model. This addresses the individual and the 5 essential elements of change that individuals need to achieve for successful change to occur. The first stage, awareness. Awareness of the need to change. Why are we doing this? Not just that change is actually happening. Desire. Building a desire to participate and support the change. The individual needs to understand the why and how it will benefit them, but we're addressing their pain points. In my experience, strong employee involvement in the actual program is one of the best strategies. Knowledge. Building knowledge on how to change. This can be through training, getting hands-on with the system, participating in testing. The key mechanism for creating knowledge is typically training, but unfortunately this is where most organizations get it wrong. They fail to address awareness and desire first, and attempt to build buy-in by just simply training people. This approach is ineffective. It can create resistance and make adoption more difficult. Ability, having the ability to implement their new skills and behaviors. Timely training for the go-live is essential here. If too much time passes, then it's common for people to forget the new skills learnt and experience frustration when they finally start to operate the new ways of working. And finally, reinforcement. Reinforcement to sustain the change, ensuring that people don't go back to their old ways of working. They need to have access to supporting materials, retraining where necessary. Changes in large organizations can be temporary if employees revert back to those old ways of doing things. So as we've discussed throughout, in order for our transformation project to be successful, we must ensure our users are supportive of the project. Otherwise, they won't adopt and use the resulting solution. Therefore, we need to make sure we engage with the business, the users of the system, in the correct way. So how can we help people engage so that they're willing to change? So a new poll here, we asked the audience, how does your organisation typically attempt to engage you in transformation projects? Is it through top-down communication, for example, emails, town halls, global communications? Is it through digital communication tools, for example, Teams, Slack? These are good for global wide-reaching communications. Is it through training programs? Again, this would be great, but we need to make sure that we've built that awareness and desire to change first. Is it through active engagement in the project? That'd be great if so. And recognition and rewards, again, great for the individual, but not necessarily the best way for long-term success. The most popular response, as you can see, was top-down communications, but this can't be the only way. To build engagement and desire to change, communication needs to be two-way. So another statistic here, now we're not saying that communication is bad, but it shouldn't be the only means to engage with people. The survey by Gartner found that employees who experience communication overload were 2.6 times more likely to be negative towards change. What we need to do is to find the appropriate and best way to engage with our business community. So there are other ways to engage people with our activities. Some of the most important will be mentioned here. So change networks. You can't expect your core transformation team involved in a multi-region rollout to be everywhere at once. You'll be constrained by resources. Central to a good OCM strategy is the establishment of change networks. These networks, comprised of change agents or local champions, are eyes and ears on the ground. They facilitate two-way communications. Identifying the stakeholders to be involved, we need to look for individuals with influence and the respect of their peers, ideally with a positive outlook on change. However, it is also important to identify any detractors early, and wherever possible, turn that negative voice into positivity through understanding their concerns and providing solutions. Effective training. So a quote at the top that's totally made up there. So our new Fiori user interface is so intuitive that users won't need to have their fears addressed and their hands held through the transition, said no successful S4 transformation project owner ever. This is a made up quote, but even when the transformation is largely technical, you would still anticipate users interacting with the system in a different way, taking advantage of these new Fiori applications. These will look different, so at the very least users will need to gain familiarity with the new screens. Otherwise, they might reject the system immediately just because it looks different. However, effective training is much more than this. We need to establish learning journeys, creating customized training plans for the specific needs of various user groups, ensuring everyone is not just informed, but competent and confident in the new ways of working with the new system. Contextual support. So most skills or behaviors learned in the classroom are forgotten soon after, unless they are reinforced. To address this issue, learning is increasingly happening when it's most needed, i.e. it's real-time advice. SAP Enable Now and SAP Companion are great ways to create tailored support materials so that people receive the right kind of help, not just training documentation, but simulations, walkthroughs, and so on. These can really help a user progress past a particular error message or warning. And the final example here, gamification. Ultimately, we need to find a way to conduct training that's going to engage the learner. This will require different techniques for different groups of people. Companies are now making learning a fun experience, for example, using virtual reality or augmented reality techniques, or virtual escape rooms to help reinforce learnings and engage people. A great example of this is actually from SAP, where they were trying to educate people on cybersecurity. So important, but so dull. So they developed an escape room where the players were captured in a horror hospital with a crazy doctor pursuing them. To survive, they had to answer security challenges in each room. Every correct answer gave them part of the clue they needed to escape, but for every wrong answer, they lost part of their virtual bodies. Teaching through game-like elements has been shown to improve retention rates from a lowly 5% to a massive 75% when compared to traditional means. People ultimately learn much faster when they're having fun. Ultimately, it's about finding the right way to engage with the users, but engagement is key if we want users to adopt and use our new systems and processes. So I'm going to leave you now with a few quotes, and this is one of my favorite ones. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. This is attributed to many people throughout history, certainly my wife. But to deliver true transformation, we need people to change the way they do things. They need to behave differently. Otherwise, we will only get what we've always got. We will not deliver new value. In closing, a quote from Rapid. Successful SAP S/4HANA transformation projects need to be business-led, but technology-enabled. People are key to this success. So we started off this presentation by stating that digital transformation projects fail over 70% of the time. But it's not going to be because of the technology. Success will be dictated by the people involved, not just those in the project team itself, but by those who ultimately need to embrace, adopt, and use the new processes. The business need to define the goals and objectives. Technology will deliver the improvements, but it's people. They are the ones who will make it all work. Thank you for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed the session. If you'd like to discuss any of the topics raised, please feel free to scan the QR code on your screen now to book some time with one of our team of experts.